y'all. Thanks for dropping in. Today's ramble, I've been thinking a lot about traveling and even just like things that I need while I travel to kind of help me cope with whether I'm struggling with anxiety or sleeplessness or just stress. Things that not necessarily like for these big epic trips, right? I've gotten to go like 20 years ago. I think I traveled to England or Mexico, but most of the trips these days are just like weekend trips if I go anywhere. This year I haven't really done any trips at all. I'm about to go on one. And so there was kind of just this theme that I've been thinking about lately on the things that I are kind of a must for me to have in my luggage, carry on, just in general, even if I'm going about my day, or if I do or if we're driving to wherever we're going. There's just certain things I really, really like to have. And so I just thought I'd talk through that a little bit. But before that, I wanted to share too that I'm really excited because I can't remember if I shared it in the intro, because the thing is as I was really determined to try and get this channel up and going, I have practiced this bit a lot because honestly, I just don't talk to a lot of people. Now, I am long-winded. If you ask me about something I know related to work, related to interests, things like that, I could talk your ear off. I'd prefer not to, but I just do. So I'm working really hard at talking less. Now, this channel is talking based only. So, but once I do these, most of the day I don't say anything. I'll just go and chat with my sister or something like that. But the thing I was excited about was that I've recorded quite a number of, uh, conversations or rambles, things like this, just to practice. I've recorded the intro and the explanation to the channel. I've recorded me talking about certain topics, kind of like I'm about to now. I even recorded when I was doing some prep on some radish kimchi. I was just talking as if my friend was sitting in the kitchen with me and just kind of talking. But then a lot of those, when I went back to listen, only recorded part of it or didn't record any of it. And I just couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. I think I was a little overwhelmed, to be honest, whenever I'm starting something new or trying something I've never tried before. Something, especially if it makes me anxious, then my brain just goes to mush. But anyways, I figured out that it's the receiver on my phone that I'm using to record this, because I'm wearing a wireless mic so I can move about. I didn't understand the light that it was showing meant that it needed to be charged. I did read the manual when I got the book. I just don't remember picking up on it. It wasn't the best manual or instruction book. But anyway, yeah, so now I'm glad I figured it out. So I know that at least I should have a recording. And then I even found a way to transfer files from my phone to my computer more easily so that I could then go into Canva and put this background on it, so that I could post it. So huzzah, I did it. Well, I figured that part out anyway. I don't know that the format will change too much. Hopefully it'll become smoother, more polished, the way that I imagined it would be. And by the reactions, feedback, comments, ideas that I get from other people, yeah, I think Obviously, content will change. At some point, I'll try to find somebody far better than me who's actually experienced at making a static background or a generic background. That I don't want to use AI if I don't have to. I don't mind hiring somebody to do it. I think there are a lot of skilled people out there, and any human being is only capable of so much, even though people are capable of so much. Anyway, so yeah, I just was really happy about that, so I wanted to share that. But yeah, traveling, and I don't even mean traveling by going to other places. I think they were so long. I didn't take my first plane ride till I was in my 20s, and that was for work. I was actually, let's see, 20, I think I was 26 when I had my first plane ride out to Boston. And then, was it then like 4 or 5 years later? Maybe I went to Mexico and then London. But I did do a lot of like day trips or car trips. Um, I've taken buses to places. And of course, I used to travel by bus when I didn't have a car. And so there were just certain things that I figured out that worked for me in terms of traveling as comfortably as I could. And one of that is I always have a crossbody purse or bag with me. I don't know why, I just shoulder bags slip, they fall, or I always feel like I have to carry it with it like an extra hand. I have to secure it, which again is a me thing because plenty of people out there are carrying purses just fine, carrying shoulder bags, clutches, wristlets, things like that, just fine. So this is very much a me thing, but I like having both hands available too. So I usually, if I'm carrying anything, any kind of purse, it's 99% of the time it's crossbody. I do carry some totes or some book bags or backpacks, but when I have a purse, it's a crossbody. I mean, I guess unless I'm going to some ultra fancy affair, but even those, they're crossbodies, and I never go to those. So I think where I would carry a bag, a shoulder bag, or a clutch is, let's say, if I were staying at a hotel and the hotel had a restaurant, had a nice restaurant, then I would feel like, okay, I could take my bag down here. But yep, 99% of the time it's crossbody. I always have my phone, a wallet, keys, and then I like to have band aids. I don't know why, just having a few band aids is nice. Pens, of course, I have to carry 2 or 3 pens. Um, Sometimes I carry like a fragrance or a scent or like I had a really terrible experience where I was at the beach and I went to the restroom and it was just real. It had been a really hot, swampy day anyway, and the bathroom was just, I really could barely breathe. And there were times where we would go hiking a lot and where you go to concerts or something or places where there's only porta potties. And so I started carrying, it was citrus fresh. I know that or like poopery, but I know that there's certain kinds out there, but with certain fragrances, I feel like all they do is just lay on top of the scent, so then you just get flower scented poop rather than actually taking care of the odor. So there's oftentimes I'll carry some sort of odor thing with me. Plus, I also just get insecure because even though I'm not the biggest fan of like going out in public, if I do, then I like to be prepared. So, I'll try to carry lip balm or something, lip balm or chapstick. Mm, what else do I almost always have? I think that's pretty much the basics. Now that's just my day to day, right? When I used to commute by bus, I would try to have headphones with me, and that's over ear. For the life of me, I cannot for the life of me find any in ears or earbuds that are comfortable. It's something to do with the anatomy of my ears, and I have tried many pairs, and even the ones that have the multi-size silicone covers. No, just nothing. I can last like maybe a minute, and after that it's so uncomfortable. I used to have the ones that kind of have a very thin strap that goes around your neck, and then you just kind of hook it over your ears, and that's okay. But honestly, I just like over ear. I think the ones that I have right now are Sony's, and they're great. I love putting that on because, especially as an introvert too, people tend to bother you less if they see that you have headphones on. So I have that. I do like to carry a book with me, but except I can't read in moving vehicles. I never have been able to, but it's great in a pinch. Like if I end up at a doctor's office and having to wait half an hour to go in, then I have a book with me. I also like to have, for longer trips, I like to carry a deck of standard playing cards, whether it's just to play solo or just simply play a game of rummy or whatever. I mean, there's 1,000 different card games, but I like carrying a deck of cards too for some longer trips, especially ones where I'm going to be on a plane. And again, I don't even travel that much. I think in the last 5 years, maybe I've taken 3 trips by plane. No, maybe even just 2 trips by plane. And then there was one trip that I took where I drove like 8 or 9 hours rather than take a plane. Anyway, so I have those with me. If I am doing a long drive, and by long, I mean that's relative, right? I've driven 13 hours, and that was long. You know, but sometimes if it's over like an hour or something, I just don't want to be comfortable. So I'll have like a cushion or something, or just make sure I have a good playlist on, have a drink or a snack or something, have sunglasses for the driving. I actually have prescription sunglasses. If I'm the passenger in a car ride, then yes, it's headphones, a thin blanket, sunglasses, or even a mask. I actually really like wearing masks when traveling because, especially if I'm the passenger, either in a bus, a car, or a plane, I always get insecure about like, am I going to be open mouthed, snoring, or just like, which can happen, but at least with a mask, people aren't having to like look at my uh, face if like my mouth is just dropped open or I'm drooling or something. And the masks also really help with allergies because I am allergic to a lot of trees and grasses. And so, honestly, if I'm wearing a mask, I usually suffer far less from that too. So, yeah, having a mask is a plus if you end up around people that are coughing and you have respiratory issues, like I just have asthma and can get, bronchitis or something pretty easily. I'd rather wear a mask and just be slightly uncomfortable rather than getting sick and being really uncomfortable. So sometimes I'll have disposable masks. Now, if I'm having to pack a bag, even if it's for a 2 night trip, let's say if I'm going to go visit some family, or if we're just doing, a little, like, when I was living in Portland, we'd go up to Seattle sometimes, right? And sometimes stay a night or two. And the thing is depending on the hotel, sometimes the pillows just aren't comfortable, or if they're made of down, I'm allergic to that. So, even if they're not down, they just get used quite a lot. So, finding one that's really comfortable isn't easy. Maybe it's me being overly sensitive. I don't remember being younger and having issues with pillows, but I think after going through cancer and just living with such discomfort at really big levels, but also really little levels, or just new sensations, that I've just become a lot more sensitive to things like that. So, if it's a car ride, then I'll actually bring one of my bigger luggages, and actually, one side is just my pillow. Like, I just bring one of my pillows with me because one night, fine, I'll figure something out, but if you don't sleep well, you just don't have a good time. At least I don't. And so, yeah, if I have my pillow, then I'm usually a lot more comfortable. And then if it's one of those times where I'm struggling with just feeling a lot more anxious, then having something familiar is something that is just a small thing, but it helps. Now, if I'm going on a bigger trip where, let's say, it's a plane ride, I don't know that I try to bring my full size pillow because it takes up a lot of real estate. Although, and of course, depending on where you're going, it just might not be practical. But I did find a small pillow. It's not my favorite, but it's okay. And again, it's a good substitute. So it's one of those that I'll compromise on. Either I take my big pillow if I have room, or I take the smaller one. And I mean, I just have to be thoughtful. Sometimes the bigger one just simply doesn't fit. So this is my compromise. Let's see, wherever I go, I like to, of course, like, toiletries and stuff that I'm used to using, Q-tips and things just to floss my own toothbrush and toothpaste. I know a lot of hotels provide shampoo and things like that, and that's fine. I actually just like to bring mine. I have a shampoo bar, actually, um, and then a body bar. So I'm not having to take even the little travel sizes of these. They're just dry bars, which is great. And then I bring my Korean scrubbing uh, cloth, and then just a standard washcloth. I prefer to bring my own. I'll even bring one that's a gray or a black if I'm going to be using it to clean off some makeup, because I don't like, even though hotels probably Scotch guard their stuff so that they don't stain. I'm a pretty particular kind of guest. I tidy the room before I go. I don't like to mess up their things. I treat their things even better than my own, even if it's a hotel and even if I'm paying for it. Same thing with a restaurant. Maybe it's a Gen X thing. I don't know. But again, I tidy as much as possible, put everything in waste baskets that I can, make sure all my towels are in the room, in the bathroom, collected. I don't make the bed and things like that, but I try to make it obvious when I've slept in it or not used something, so that the housekeeping doesn't have to clean something that I didn't use. But along with the room, so if I'm going on a day trip, then those hotels they usually have a microwave or a fridge. A lot of times these days they don't even really have microwaves. So I bring an electric kettle. I know that the coffee makers make hot water, but I also don't think they clean those coffee makers super often. So I have like a 1 liter electric kettle that I have. I always have hot water, or try to have hot water on hand when possible. But um, at a point too, when I live with some family, and the rooms that I have didn't have a full kitchen. I bought a lot of the electric appliances. So sometimes I have a small electric pot, kind of like you would take to a college dorm. So a small electric pot. If I want to bring some ramen, some noodles, or some soup, because eating out is expensive. So, and then sometimes you just get hungry at weird times. So at 2 in the morning, the vending machine chips just don't always hit. So I have like an electric kettle for water, and that I can bring to have instant coffee. Just sometimes some uh, bouillon powder, like some beef broth powder or chicken broth powder, or some uh, other drinks, tea, and sometimes just a cup of hot water or hot cocoa just really is nice when you're traveling. So I have that. Sometimes I'll make room for the actual little pot that's a ramen cooker. So again, that's kind of the car driving trip. I don't bring the electric pot or kettle with me when I fly somewhere. What I did just buy though, which was nice, is it's almost the size of just a insulated water bottle. It heats up water anywhere from 140 degrees to 212. So absolutely perfect for something warm. And the brilliant thing about the kettle too is the day I'm supposed to pack. So either that morning after I make some coffee, and I'm talking about like these instant coffee sticks that you could find at Asian stores. Just you could look it up online. Instant coffee sticks. There are 3 in 1. It has the instant coffee, powdered cream, and sugar. So it's all mixed in one one little stick. And so I'll bring a pack of those. I like having chopsticks with me, disposable chopsticks. I think I have some extra stirrers. And then what else do I have packed in there? I found a sweet potato drink or a corn drink, or like a warm rice cereal. Again, these are all Korean products. But yeah, I just had to take it in a Ziploc bag with some extra napkins. And I even brought these little paper cups that are maybe 6-ounce sizes. Because I know, again, they have cups in the rooms, but I don't like, if I'm staying somewhere and it's 4 nights or less, I really don't need housekeeping to come in, and I don't really want housekeeping to come in. I don't know. I mean, again, I know it's their hotel. I just don't like the idea of someone coming in the room when I'm not there. Again, I know they're usually trustworthy and all that, but again, it's an anxiety thing. I don't want to walk in and see somebody there, or for anyone to walk in and me be there. And so, yeah, so I just keep those with me so that I don't have to really ask for refills on anything. Let's see, what else do I take? Oh, when I pack and when I take a plane ride, I prefer not to use a carry-on. I had an incident shortly after I think it was right after I'd gone through chemo, where I was trying to lift my bag and it slipped, and it was so close to hitting someone square on top of the head, which would have been so painful. I was really embarrassed. Now, whether or not I should feel embarrassed isn't the point, because I understand if somebody near me or next to me happened, I wouldn't want them to feel embarrassed. But feelings are weird, and we just feel them, and we can't always control that we feel them. So yeah, I would just remember feeling really embarrassed, and also just embarrassed, feeling struggling too, because I'd just gotten so weak that I couldn't even lift a carry-on over my head. Now at this point, I'm sure I could. I know that my range of motion isn't as good as it used to be. So honestly, and just the having to wait to pull it off or not, I don't know. Again, not the worst thing. It's not an 100% never will I ever use the overhead bins or carry on anything. I just prefer not to. I'd rather just check a baggage. That's if it's again, and I'm checking a baggage a lot of times because my pillow, like the pillow is kind of the non-negotiable for me. And so, but I know I can carry a personal item and something like a tote pack or a backpack. Those two things I have, and so that works out great. Um, yeah, so I'll bring something. I have to have I'd like to have my charger. I think I talked earlier about what I like to have in my carry-on. Something to snack on. I don't drink or eat a lot before I get on a plane, depending on the length of the ride, because if I can avoid using the restroom on a plane, I prefer to do that. I think some of it is because I always pick a window seat, so I don't want to be the person who's climbing over other people to go. I've experienced being on a plane with people who um, are not feeling well. You could just tell they have an upset stomach, or I've heard stories of just coworkers or friends who had upset stomachs, and it's just one of those nightmare scenarios, right? You're in a plane, and you can't. It's kind of like being on a boat and something going wrong. You feel stuck in a way. So I'm hyper aware, and I'm overly cautious. Fully admit I'm overly cautious about what I eat and drink even the day before. And then the morning of, I think a friend of mine got very sick off of an airport sandwich. And they were taking a trip to Europe, which was at least an 8-hour flight. So just for the 8 hours, they were absolutely wretched. So, yeah, so not that I won't eat anything, again, just depending on the length of the flight. I think I'm aware of people around me, and so I don't want to bring anything that smells a certain way. I mean, if it's a long enough flight, usually they have some kind of snacks or something on the plane. So yeah, just those are things that I'm kind of picky about, and that's not a bad thing. It's just, it's about me being as comfortable as I can on the flight or in the long car ride. I prefer to sleep because it's panic attacks for anybody out there who's had one. You're going to completely understand. Um, and for those of you who haven't, I'll try to explain it a bit. I can feel when a panic attack is starting to come on, or an anxiety attack is starting to come on. And that feeling, it's almost like nausea versus actually vomiting. The nausea part of it is a different kind of unpleasantness than the actual just getting it over with and doing it right. Panic attacks are equally bad. The feeling it's coming on and being in it and not being able to control your breathing, or just the feeling that your body thinks it's dying and you want to just for that moment to be over. And so, even though my anxiety attacks do not happen as frequently as they used to, again, I'll share that on another ramble when I talk about my cancer experience. But for several years there, it was really wild to see what would kind of trigger anxiety. And so these days, yeah, I know what I need to do to kind of avoid it. And one of those things is sleep. Now, I've always been able to sleep on a plane, even before going through cancer and all of that stuff. I was always able to sleep on a plane, and I prefer it. So even if it's a short trip, like an hour, I'll try it. I can usually be asleep before the plane's in the air. Sometimes I take Dramamine if I'm feeling nauseous, and that does help me sleep as well. Um, so yeah, that's same thing in a car ride if I'm in the back, depending on where we're driving. Again, if I get car sick, that's so unpleasant. Nobody likes being nauseous. Nausea is really awful. And it takes a long time for me to get over it. So I have things like when I was going through cancer treatment, I some of the medicines that they would infuse would be an antiemetic and anti-nausea, and I have these sublingual pills too. Zofran, I think, is a common medication, but the generic of that is called ondansetron, ONDANSETRON, and they have a sublingual form. And the sublingual just dissolves underneath your tongue, which is important because if you swallow a pill, but then you actually throw up, then you likely may also throw up the medication. So having it dissolve, plus it hits your system faster. So I've used that before too. But yeah, I just like sleeping if I'm the passenger anywhere. If I'm in an Uber or something, then again, I'm kind of more on high alert and my kind of adrenaline's going because I just want to get to where I'm going. There's just these checkpoints in my mind like, okay, once I get here, I can just relax and breathe a bit. And so, another thing that I found helps, and this might be useful if you struggle with uh, anxiety and not knowing how to deal with that. One thing I know weighted blankets are popular, and if they work for you, or if you haven't tried it, definitely do that. I even have a sheep stuffed animal that's weighted that just kind of sits on my chest that helps. The other thing that I found was this peanut massager that's a really good size actually, and it is this peanut shaped so that I can actually put it under my knee or under my thigh or put my foot on it or put it under my arm. And the percussion of that massager is enough to pull my thoughts out of my head and just away from the thing that it's fixated on. And, like there's a type of breathing that you could do that's 2 breaths in and 1 breath out. So you just go, so in through your nose twice and out. And that's another thing sometimes if I haven't met the weight limit on luggage as I'm flying, but I'll even carry it with me on these kind of day trips, weekend trips that I'll take, is I do to bring that peanut massager as well as the charge cord for it, because I don't know if it's restless leg syndrome or what it is, but I do get restless at night, especially if I'm struggling with insomnia where I can't sleep for more than 2 hours, 2 or 3 hours, even if I take a sleep aid like melatonin. But the percussion just helps pull me out of my head a little bit and keeps me from spiraling, which is really nice. And so, and even when I was in pain, when I was in pain from the chemo medications, which was, I won't get into it too much, but it was just a level of pain I just didn't even think was possible. One of the things that I found that helped was this percussive massager. And it was interesting, right? Because let's say my leg bone was really hurting. You would think that it was hurting in a way that if you've ever broken a leg or fractured, you don't want anybody to touch it. Or if you have a bruise or a pinched nerve, you don't want anyone to touch it. It's not going to help, it makes it worse. And what was interesting was even though it hurt and ached, that frequency of pain, I was able to disrupt it with this peanut massager where, let's say, my leg was really hurting. I would set my wrist. I would just be laying there and I would set my wrist on this percussive peanut massager. And now I had one of those big long stick ones that was like heavy percussion. And if you have that and you have someone to do that for you, good for you. That's great. Or even some of these great percussive massagers that you could find at some chiropractic offices. But the thing is, too, is my arms hurt, my hands hurt, everything hurt. So me trying to hold it and figure, it's the ones that kind of have the ET looking head and the uh, two round feet. I could never quite get it. It was either like completely going way too hard or just I couldn't quite get it in the right position and still be comfortable. So anyway, that's these percussive massagers were nice because you just charge them. And honestly, I've used them every day for it had to at least be 4 years, for 4 or 5 years, and they're still going strong. So these were expensive. They were or more expensive than what you could find the other massagers for. I think on Amazon they're $60 or $70, which don't get me wrong, I know is a lot of money, especially in this economy. But again, I've used it every day for over 4 or 5 years and they're still going strong. So at the time, it was, it's just been worth it in that sense. Especially because honestly, it would have been worth it if it had just lasted a year for me, as much pain and discomfort as I was in. And so, yeah, so the percussive massager, when I was in pain, I could even set it on the body part that was hurting, and it didn't make that pain worse. It actually interrupted the signal. It interrupted the pain signal, and your brain, again, super fascinating organ, it can't focus on too many things all at once. So, like if you have pain in your shoulder and your knee and your head I'm not saying you can't feel multiple pain points in your body. I'm not saying that. But when it comes to, like, if I have to do an injection, then I have one of those little spiky things that you squeeze your skin next to it. And then you could do the injection and you don't feel the individual injection as much because, again, your brain is busy with all those other little spiky inputs. Or even that's why distraction works. Your brain can be focused on one thing, and if you distract it, then for a moment, then that it's not thinking about that pain. But yeah, so it's been great. I take it with me if I'm traveling. I don't know what it looks like in the scanners if they scan it, because it's just this peanut or dumbbell shaped thing. Um, but yeah, so those are just some of the things that I like to have when I travel. I will say too, on a plane, I like having an eye mask, or in a car, I like having an eye mask or a hoodie that pulls down over your eyes. Uh, yeah, that helps in terms of sleeping or feeling comfortable. So, whatever it is, whether it's little snacks or drinks, favorite snacks or drinks, whether it's like when my sister and I go on a trip, we'll stop by this one gas station that we always stop by and we pick up snacks, certain drinks, probably some sort of long Slim Jim or beef jerky. Uh, there's places that have boiled peanuts here in the South where you get hot boiled peanuts, so they have the consistency of a bean, but peanutty taste. If we're traveling in a different direction, we always stop by Buc-ee's. If you've never been to Buc-ee's or heard of Buc-ee's, it's worth stopping by. They truly have clean restrooms. Over at the coffee station, they probably have 5 to 10 different kinds of coffee creamer. The food is decent, and it's almost like a little store. They have clothes and all this stuff, but you get fueled up and you get all those things, and it's great. I think with some trips, I think one of my last trips I took, I decided to Uber to the airport, which was a good call because it was early, I was tired, and it was nice to just get dropped off right at the airport entrance. There's other times where it's worth it to just drive and park. A lot of airports have a where you could reserve long-term parking online and you get a better deal. I think one place I tried for 5 full days was maybe $100, which again, I'm not trying to make it sound like $100 is not a lot of money. I just know that an Uber drive would have cost me the same amount to go there and back, and there's just always that unknown about, oh, there's a little bit of that anxiety about, oh, where am I going to find them? Are we going to connect? Are they cool? All that kind of stuff. So there's kind of the balances of when you decide to take Uber and when you decide to use your car, or when you go to the city, whether you rent a car or whether you just get an Uber around. I think one of my trips, if I go back to see friends, obviously I don't need to get a car. I just borrowed one of theirs. There are times where, yeah, just having the freedom of your own vehicle is nice. And then there are times where, depending on the city, you don't need one at all. And it doesn't make sense to park at the hotel for $70 a day when you're barely going to use it. I think when I took one trip, though, it was absolutely worth having a car because the places we wanted to go were a lot farther than just within. Let's say if you go to New York, you usually stay downtown New York and can get taxis and cabs, right? If you go somewhere like, yeah, maybe if you go to Seattle, then maybe you want to drive up to Vancouver, Canada, or you want to go over to Victoria, take a ferry over there. Maybe if you're in the LA area, you want to go everywhere from Disney to, you want to go to to Malibu, to maybe go over to Vegas, whatever. But in those situations, then maybe getting a car makes sense. But yeah, I think it's important, like with anything, even if you're just going into the office to work or just going to school, to have a few things that help you get through the day. Especially if you're on campus or at school a long time and you have a good break, to bring those things that you can go find a place to take a nap. I think there was one trip I took where my layover, well, I don't know why my layover was so long, but I actually, that this particular airport, gosh, I can't even remember where it is now. I don't know if it was like Minnesota or Texas. I can't remember where I flew into. Anyway, but the point is that the airport had a service where they had like a little suite of rooms where it was just a, room with a table, mirror, kind of thing, a window. But it was maybe, was it $40 to rent it for an hour? Which again, $40 at the time was like, ugh, do I really want to spend this money? But then trying to find a place to sleep out in the airport when I was traveling on my own, just, it didn't feel, yeah, it just didn't feel good to do that. And I didn't have a ticket that let me in any of the lounges. Um, so yeah, it was definitely a splurge. And again, I know all of this is relative, right? Some of you listening, like $40, $100, that's light work. And some of you are like, I would never ever be able to spend that. And so there are times in my life where I've lived on egg sandwiches, and times where I did have a little extra money. I planned in advance I set aside some money so that I could splurge. Now, what it meant was maybe splurging on the room and getting something cheaper to eat. But that at the time, with everything, it was worth it, right? It was just worth it. Like paying a little bit more money for a ticket so that I could be closer to the front of the plane, or in a seat that has a little bit more room, or paying money to check a bag, so I don't have to worry about the overhead compartment and I just have the one bag. That's worth it. And there will be days where it's not worth it, where I pack very little and I just decide wherever I'm going, especially if I go back out west to visit some friends, I can just go to a Ross while I'm there and buy some clothes if I need it. Or there's a really great thrift store where it's so easy to find, anything that you would need to wear layers and, go out and about. So I'm sorry, where you could, buy the clothes that you need for kind of like the little excursions or whatever. Same thing with like toiletries and makeup. That if you're going somewhere that has a Walmart, CVS, um, store that has those things, then if it's easier to not pack those things, then that makes sense. If it helps, you could probably even download an audiobook or find an audiobook that you can listen to. That again, if it's a story, I particularly like listening to audiobooks of stories I've already read because I already know the story. So that's something that kind of helps with travel stress. I did go through the process of doing a TSA pre-check for here in the States. Process was really simple. Register online. They had something at a local like Office Depot or Staples. It's like 30 minutes maybe, and I had my number within a few days. That especially at busy airports, like if you have a busier airport and even if the TSA only cuts your time in half, again, that might be worth it to you. Or like me, if I have to go to the airport, if we need to get on the road, I would much rather get on the road sooner than wait for that. Like, I genuinely would rather arrive somewhere an hour or two earlier rather than try to time it just right and then accidentally get caught in traffic or accidentally get caught in a crowd that there's no way you could have predicted. And just the stress of that, again, it's just not worth it. There's a cost to things, which there's a limit to cost, right? Like if that room had been $100, I was not gonna stay in that room for an hour for $100. That didn't make sense. We'll get into, how things get overcharged in general for no reason except to make somebody a whole lot of money in a different one, in a different ramble. But yeah, I think whatever you need to do, short car ride or long, short if you're taking a train or a bus, thinking ahead to, okay, if I drink or eat this now, will that mean I need to use the restroom there later? Or where will those stops be along the way? What can I bring that helps me feel more secure? Um, and being prepared has a lot to do with lowering my stress. So, like, I have the directions, sometimes even printed out old school style in case you hit an area where there's no reception for your cell phone. Full tank of gas. Um, make sure like everything kind of just oil changes, checks out on your car. As do what everything you can to be prepared. If you know that food on the road is just going to upset your stomach, then having something packed. Or if you know, gosh, we always hit up um, we always stop by this fast food place, then let me just know in advance what I'm going to get. Like, you go to Chick-fil-A this morning, I got a yogurt parfait. I just was not feeling anything else on their menu. Or if you go and you're just go to Arby's and you're just like, I'm so sick of fast food, they have actual like turkey sandwiches or something. That's, or if you go to a gas station, you can find pre-made sandwiches or pretzels or fruit, pre-cut fruit. Um, just the traditional stuff, not Not just always the travel food that you can kind of get tired of. The chips and all that stuff, those are fine. There's actually a couple types of chips I really like. But yeah, I think just moving through life, whether it's on a trip, whether it's on a move, you're moving. There was a time where I moved every year for like 13 years and I hardly ever unpacked anything. I used to travel light, much lighter, but the little things like your non negotiables, um, making sure your headphones are charged, your phone is charged, your uh, whatever device or player, um, bringing along something that's comforting to you, taking Dramamine if there's something that you think is going to make you motion sick, or finding something like that. You could ask the pharmacist at any retail pharmacy whether or not you have a prescription there, or they know you or not. You could always ask the pharmacist their opinion on something to take with you for certain symptoms that you might always have as you're on the road. If you know that your stomach tends to get upset from stress or from traveling in general, they have things you could take over the counter. That I am not a medical doctor, I'm just somebody who's taken a lot of variety of over the counter things, or just talk to pharmacists a lot about it. You can always ask for that too, whether it's something for heartburn, headaches, upset stomach, any of those things. So you do what you need to do. And you can usually even find some of the stuff at the dollar store. You don't, oftentimes, the brand name is no different from the generic. And if you think it might be, or you're not sure, test it out. Of course, make sure to get advice if you need to, whatever it is. But test it out. I don't find it's any different. But yeah, you can always just get a small pack of something at the dollar store. It doesn't have to be expensive. But yeah, whatever you need to do, whether it's going to work, going to school, going on a trip, moving house, just whether you unexpectedly need to be prepared to move or leave. Um, yeah, just think of those few things that would just help a little. It might not make everything better, it won't change certain things, but if it's within your means to do it, I think you should do it. Just, you're not being particular, you're not being extra, you're doing what you need to do to have as good a time as possible without putting any stress or burden on anyone else. It's just what you need. Um, yeah. But yeah, so that's just a little bit about traveling today, a little bit about what I think about whenever I'm packing, or depending on if I'm driving or if I'm not, from the passenger, some things that have helped me cope with some of my stress and anxiety, um, especially over the last several years, and things that I've learned along the way that actually make a difference for me. And hopefully, something strikes a chord with you, it resonates with you, that makes sense, that it's something that you do, or if there's other things that you find help you deal with certain situations, please feel free to share. I'm always happy to learn from somebody else's experience. Otherwise, I hope something I shared made sense and it can be helpful to you too, even if it was just to listen in for a little bit. But yeah, I hope you guys take care as always, and that you drop on in next time.